me use Alan as a case in point by what I mean. See, Alan is a select guy and he doesn't want to accept that. Why? In his day, he was good looking, lighter skinned, with that type of hair. We all know what I'm talking about. I'm not making a colorist argument. I personally don't give a shit.
Mode 1.
But I also have eyes. And yeah, black women, particularly back in the 80s and 90s, yeah, they responded to shit like that. They did. Now, does it help if you are a smooth verbal seducer? Oh, without question. Without question. But let's not fool ourselves here. Alan is an above average good looking guy in a black American context, particularly in the 80s and 90s. He would be above average looking. That makes a big difference for black women. Now again, you can completely flub it. There have been many black women that said he was so fine until he opened his mouth. I'll grant you that. I'll grant you that. And he was even on a panel on the Bernard Riley show. I'm going to be talking about that in a minute. And a brother on the panel, I remember this, a brother on the panel said, yo, man, how you going to be at the university where the Noops were born, his fraternity, the Noops, where they were born, where they're known to be pretty boys. That's what Noops are known for. And you think your looks don't got nothing to do with nothing. Alan couldn't even answer the question. That's the delusion. And that's the reason why I'm the dating coach for the non-select guy. Because let's be honest, if you're a select guy, it's just like what King Sigma said to Gab Talk Media. He said, I can't relate to Obsidian. I'm a select guy. I cannot relate to his experiences. King Sigma is one of the rare select guys who have self-awareness. Most select guys have little to no self-awareness, Alan Roger Currie being chief among them. King Sigma has it. Alan Roger Currie don't have it. And that's what I meant when I said most black women and some black men can afford to delude themselves. That's what I meant. If you're a non-select guy, you cannot afford to delude yourself.
Mode 1.
Now, you know, I said I wasn't going to do another video after Thursday's video. I said that was my last video for the week. But you know me. You know me. You know I couldn't resist. If you heard that intro just now, you know I couldn't resist responding to that shit. You know I couldn't resist responding to that. For better or for worse. Matter of fact, I had a person in my comment section say to me, he said, Alan, when it comes to your dating advice for women, he said, I'll always take everything you say on face value. He said, because I trust your advice. I trust your words. But he said, if there's one time I never trust your word, the credibility of your words, is when you say, this is going to be my last video of the week or my last video of the month. He said, anytime you say this is going to be my last video of the week or my last video of the month, he said, I never take your words as being credible because I know you always end up contradicting yourself, which is valid. That's valid. Although that leads me to a reminder, yeah, I'm pretty certain, I'm like 99.9% certain, I'm not going to be doing any YouTube videos the month of September. Because the main reason why is because my wife is giving birth to my son, my first child, next month, roughly the middle of next month. So starting with Tuesday, September 1st, I want to say until roughly Sunday, October 4th, I'm not doing any videos. I don't care if anybody talks shit about me, whatever. I'm not doing any videos. Well, for about a 4.5, 5-week period, I'm not doing any. Now, I'll still be doing Patreon videos. I'll still do a few Patreon exclusive videos for my Patreon subscribers. But when it comes to videos for the YouTube general public, now starting on September 1st, and for the next 4.5 to 5 weeks, I'm not going to be doing any videos. I'm going to be adjusting to life as a first-time father. Yeah, this is my first time at the age of 57. This is my first time being a father. Now, going back to that intro by the ever so controversial black male podcaster and freelance writer, Mumia Obsidian Ali. I don't know if there's any guy on YouTube who simultaneously amuses me and irritates me. Some people do just one or the other. They either exclusively amuse me with their commentary, particularly as it relates to me, or they exclusively irritate me. Then there's some people who do a blend of both. They almost simultaneously amuse me and irritate me. Obsidian's in that category. Number one, I'm both amused and irritated when anybody likes to think that they have a better and more accurate and more valid analysis of me and my behavior than I do. I've mentioned that on a couple of previous videos. I mean, that's not just a YouTube thing. I've had people do that ever since I was probably like in high school. You always run into people. I'm sure a lot of you people listening to me have had 2 or 3 people in your own life that have tried to do that with you, where people think they know you better than you know yourself. But I've had at least a handful of people on YouTube that have expressed commentary suggesting that they think they know me better than I know my... Dude, I'm one of the most self-aware people on planet Earth. It ain't nothing you could tell me about myself that would make me say, damn, I didn't realize I was like that. Or I didn't realize I do that. Or I didn't realize I say that. I would challenge you to name any aspect about me that would make me say, damn, I had no idea I do that. I have no idea I say that. I have no idea I behave like that. I'm consciously aware of every aspect of my behavior. Like if I had to give a couple examples, when I was young, probably the number one thing that fell in that category was my level of cockiness and being what most people call egotistical. Women used to say that a lot. They used to say stuff like, Alan, sometimes I don't think you realize how cocky you are and how cocky and egotistical you are and braggadocious you are. And I used to be like, yes, I do. I used to be like, yes, I do. I'm very aware of the fact that I'm a cocky, egotistical motherfucker. I'm extremely egotistical. I said that when I first got on YouTube. If you've been a long-time follower of me, I remember specifically. It was either my like 3rd, 4th, or 5th video after I first got on YouTube. I was doing a lighthearted analysis of my strengths and weaknesses. My strengths, which was most of my commentary, and then I named about probably 2 or 3 weaknesses. And I said, if there's one characteristic about me that most people would probably categorize as a weakness of mine, but I said, I don't know if I agree. I said, I'm extremely egotistical. No, the specific word I said, I'm egotistically competitive. That's what I said. I said, I'm extremely egotistically competitive. I'm talking about like Michael Jordan, Tom Brady type level. I mean, that's what certain athletes like Michael Jordan was known for being egotistically competitive. Tom Brady in football was known for being egotistically competitive. And there's a few other athletes. Kobe Bryant was known for being egotistically competitive. Roger Federer in tennis. Most top-notch athletes are very egotistically competitive. But yeah, that's one thing I said about myself when I first got, I said I'm very egotistically competitive. Very much. For better or for worse. I'm extremely, like, speaking of that, on a side note, it was brought to my attention that Anthony Johnson, the organizer of the 21 convention, did this kind of lighthearted poll. I don't think it was too serious, but more so I'd probably call it lighthearted. And he asked, who is the GOAT of the manosphere? Who is the GOAT of the manosphere? I don't think he specifically said who's the GOAT of dating coaches. He just said who's the GOAT of the manosphere in general. And he had 5 candidates. And I'm not going to say all the names, but I'll say at least one name. One name was AMS, was one of his 5 candidates. And I looked at that. Did y'all watch Michael Jordan's documentary, The Last Dance? Replace Michael Jordan with me. What Michael Jordan was to basketball, that's what I am in regards to sharing knowledge, wisdom, insight, and advice in the manosphere. We're like twins. What his ego, his degree of egotistical competitiveness is in regards to his ability to play basketball and what he's accomplished on the basketball court, that's how I am in regards to being a top-notch dating coach. So I had some of the same, again, if you watch The Last Dance, you'll know it. And now if you didn't watch it, you won't know what I'm talking about. But he had certain reactions when they asked him about some of his competitors, some of what his rivals said about him and their rivalry. And again, going back to when I first got on YouTube, I said when I first got on YouTube, I said without modesty at all, I said I believe hands down that I am the best direct verbal game dating coach that's ever lived. And I'll double down on that, triple down on that. Now, when it comes to indirect dating advice, people who give more so indirect verbal game, I won't compare myself to them because their advice is totally different. But when it comes to anybody who gives direct verbal game-oriented advice, I believe I am the best dating coach that's ever walked this fucking earth. So I would say I'm hands down the GOAT of direct verbal game dating coaches. Now again, like AMS, he's not a direct verbal game dating coach. He's an indirect verbal game dating coach. So he might warrant the title of the greatest of all time as far as indirect verbal game dating coaches or people who teach. There's different forms of game. Again, there's 5 general types of game. To remind you, at least in my opinion, there's 2 types of verbal game and 3 types of nonverbal game. There's verbal game, there's direct verbal game advice, then there's indirect verbal game advice. Nonverbal game, there's looks game. Looks game. Matter of fact, Ron Wills puts a lot of emphasis on specifically body game, which is a form of looks game. There's looks game advice. There's money and status game. I know some people on YouTube who give advice related to money and status game. And I'm going to touch on that in this video, money and status. Money and status game. Then there's what's known as sub-communication, otherwise known as masculine energy game or body language game or non-verbal communication game. So those are 5 general types of game you have, generally speaking. You could get more specific than that, but I would say generally speaking, there's those 5 types of game. There's direct verbal game advice, indirect verbal game advice, looks, advice related to improving your looks, whether it be face, physique, or both, money and career success and wealth and social status advice, and then stuff to do with your nonverbal communication. I cover at least 2 of those 5, particularly in my one-on-one face-to-face coaching sessions. I cover direct verbal game and I cover sub-communication. So I cover 2 of those 5, both in general and particularly when I do one-on-one face-to-face coaching sessions. Yeah, I do. I cover both. In my one-on-one face-to-face coaching sessions, I cover direct verbal game, and to a slightly less extent, I cover things to do with your demeanor and disposition, a man's demeanor and disposition. But yeah, I'll say it, dude. When it comes to giving direct verbal game, anything related to direct verbal game advice, I don't believe there's a motherfucker who's ever walked this planet that gives better advice than me. Seriously. I don't believe there's a person who's ever walked this earth. If there's one person, and I mentioned this before, that gave me that type of endorsement, well, I've actually had a few people who give me that endorsement. I've had a few people. Sasha Day, who I've actually had an up and down relationship with, but he was probably one of the first. He was the one who first gave me the nickname, the Godfather of direct verbal game. Yeah, so one of the first people that said that was Sasha Day back in 2000, I think either somewhere between 2010 and 2012. He said that. He said, I don't think there's anybody in the world that can say they're better at giving direct verbal game advice than you. And he said that with all due respect to David X. And I got a lot of love for David X. But he said I would probably rank David X number 2. But he said, I don't think there's anybody who gives better direct verbal game advice than you. Here on YouTube, BGS Itmore, a black male YouTuber named BGS Itmore, said that. He said, Alan Roger Currie is not the first guy I've seen use direct verbal game. He said there was some guy who went to high school with, that was good at direct verbal. But he said when it comes to teaching it, he said I don't know anybody that's better than Alan Roger Currie. And there's been a few other people that I can think of if I was really putting my mind to it. I can't think of off the top of my head. But I've had a number of people in that manosphere that, so again, with all due respect to Anthony Johnson and his candidates, I don't know if I would call myself the GOAT of the manosphere in terms of just overall advice, period. Because the manosphere covers a wide range of advice. It can cover advice related to improving your success with women, improving your finances, improving your health and fitness, helping men get through a divorce, helping men raise children. So that in the worldwide manosphere as a whole, the worldwide manosphere covers a wide range of topics and different pieces of advice. So I would never categorize myself as the GOAT, which stands for greatest of all time, when it comes to just a wide range of advice related to men's lives and men's self-improvement and personal development. So I'll say that. But again, when it comes specifically to an advice designed to help men improve their success with women that centers on direct verbal game, that's where I would declare myself the GOAT. And I know that's egotistical to do, but I would declare myself the GOAT. When it comes to direct verbal game, it ain't nobody in the manosphere that's better than me at direct verbal game advice. Nobody. When it comes to improving your direct verbal game skills, verbal seduction skills, erotic dirty talk skills, man, ain't nobody can fade me. And if they think they can, show me your resume. That's what I say. Show me your resume. Show me your resume. That's what I simply say. Show me your resume. I'll give you one off the top of my head. Name another guy in the manosphere that has made women play with their pussy live on air, on live internet radio, other than me. Before me and other than me. They got a show like the Erotic Conversationalist that's that has a show similar to my show, the Erotic Conversationalist, in addition to the times on my regular blog talk radio show, Upfront and Straightforward, where I had women playing with their pussies on live internet radio. Many times with their boyfriend, fiance, or husband in the room with them. In the room with them. Who else can make that type of claim, man? That's why C Boogie, if you listen to the outro, called me the Michael Jordan of verbal seduction. Even Obsidian himself, when we were cool, referred to me as the master of verbal seduction. You heard in my outro, you heard Kevin Samuels, who's real popular right now on YouTube, saying he was willing to pay me money to teach him how to talk dirty to women. Dude, ain't nobody can fade me when it comes to that shit. Show me an audio clip where you made a woman play with her pussy on live internet radio on like a live stream, live internet radio, you had her playing with pussy, and on top of that, with either a husband, fiance, or boyfriend in the room with her. I've done that at least 5-6 times. Where I not only made a woman play with her pussy, but I made a woman play with her pussy while either her husband, fiance, or long-term romantic companion was in the room with her. That's how bad this motherfucker is. But anyway, I went on a way digression. I was talking about self-awareness. And if you listen to Obsidian's comments, he was suggesting that I'm two things. He said I'm in denial about being what's known as a select guy. That's a Ron Wills term. Select guy. Select guy, from what I understand, and Ron Wills would be able to define that better than me, but a select guy simply means you're a high percentage of women that you come in contact with consider you very physically attractive and sexually desirable. That's a select guy in a nutshell. I think there's more to it. Again, Ron Wills is more, I would defer to Ron Wills on a specific detailed definition of a select guy versus a non-select guy. But generally speaking, a select guy is a guy that has a high percentage of women he comes in contact with that will consider him a combination of physically attractive and full of masculine sex appeal. That's a select guy. A non-select guy would be pretty much just the opposite. You have a very low percentage of women that you come in contact with that consider you physically attractive or that consider you as possessing a high degree of masculine sex appeal. For me, my similar terms would simply be alpha beta. I more so use alpha beta in the same way Rom uses select versus non-select. For me, that's what a womanizing alpha male is. Yeah, my general definition of a womanizing alpha male is the same general definition of what Rom calls a select guy. To me, a woman, when you're what I categorize as a womanizing alpha male, that means you're a guy that women consider to be good looking to one degree or another, very confident, very masculine, and very dominant. Good looking to one degree or another, very confident, very masculine, and very dominant. In fact, add on one more thing, smooth and seductive. Smooth and seductive. Those are the characteristics that generally go into what I would call a womanizing alpha male. Whereas on the flip side, a beta male is a guy that has to pay money to women. He has to pay women money to get them to respond to him in a very favorable manner sexually. That's a guy who has to pay women money to get women to respond to him favorably. Speaking of that, somebody asked me a question, and they must have thought they was talking to AMS asking me this question. Because whoever asked me this question relates to the same disagreement I first had with Feliciano T. Collins, aka his pseudonym Alpha Male Strategies. I'm going to talk about that for a second. I've had a few people write in my comment section like, most of it is lighthearted, but a couple of people real serious. They say, Alan, why do you insist on saying Alpha Male Strategies' real government name? Because it's his fucking real government name. That's the simple answer. For people ask me, why do I insist on, because it's his real government name. That's number one. His name on his birth certificate ain't Alpha Male Strategies. That ain't his government, that ain't his birth certificate name. And number two, as I pointed out in 2 videos previously, people are trying to accuse me. I was not the first one who outed his name. If you Google his name, you will see that his name was already out. Once your real name is out on Google, it's out. You know, I had some people try to say, I had a couple people try to say, Alan, aren't you more or less doxing him? No, doxing somebody is when you reveal stuff about people that they can't easily find on Google. That's doxing someone. So if you cannot easily find someone's real name on Google, their real mailing address, their real phone number, and stuff like that, anything that cannot be easily accessed on Google, that's doxing someone. That's when you're guilty of doxing someone. But if some can easily be found, like if my real name can be easily found on Google, then nobody can dox that. If my real street address or mailing address can be found on Google, just by a simple research on Google, that's not doxing. If my real phone number, landline number, or mobile number can be easily found on just a simple Google search, it's already included in something that's known already to the general public, that's not doxing. So I just want to clarify that. This is at least my third time clarifying that. I was not the first one to reveal his real name. Actually, from my knowledge, the first one who revealed it to me was these women on this blog site in New York City. There was 5 women who were talking about AMS on a blog site in New York City, and they used his real name. They were, if anybody, and secondly, he also had a wiki page. He had a wiki page that I found. Once I put his name in Google, there was a wiki page that came up with his real name. It said Feliciano T. Collins, otherwise known by his pseudonym, Alpha Male Strand. He had a wiki page. It wasn't on Wikipedia. It was a site that's similar to Wikipedia. But he already had, if you have a wiki page with your real name, that means your name is already out there. So I'm tired of people falsely accusing me of being the first one to reveal his name. No, I was not. There was at least 2 sources that had his name already out there. Again, one was a New York City blog site for black women that revealed his real name, and another was a wiki page that had his real name on it. So I was not the first one to reveal his real name. But yeah, that ain't his name. That's like if my pseudonym was Smooth Chocolate Daddy, and people were interviewing me and say, hey, welcome, Smooth Chocolate Daddy. I would feel stupid. I'm just going to be real. I would feel stupid if people were calling me something other than my real fucking name. I use my real fucking birth certificate name. Alan Roger Currie. That's on my birth certificate. Facts. Drops mic. But anyway, this guy asked me this question. I'll read it. I think I do have it. I don't need to paraphrase. I'm a read it word for word. This blew my mind that he asked me this question. Okay, the YouTube user's name, he goes by Alfred Aubrey. For all I know, that could be a pseudonym. I don't know if that's his real name or a pseudonym. But his name, he goes by Alfred Aubrey. And he said, author Alan Roger Currie, can you speak on this? LOL. I think it's delusional that men think they can sleep with a woman who is a 7, 8, or 9 without coming out of their pockets, be it a date or just hanging out. Not saying you have to pay for her sex, but to think most men are going to pull that value of a woman without any money is ridiculous. 90% of men are going to be paying, be it a dinner or a movie. Gas going out to hang is going to cost unless you're a millionaire, movie star, or someone that has very high status. I call that the AMS argument. To refresh your memory, that was the first actually major debate that me and AMS had when he used to post in my comment section back in fall of 2017. I remember. Yeah, because again, he used to post in my comment section starting with late August, early September of 2017, all the way up until around late November, early December of 2017. He used to post in my comment section. And I remember vividly, the first time he and I got into like a major disagreement and debate in my comment section was related to what that guy said. That guy, Alfred Aubrey, just said. Yep, AMS, that's what he basically said. He said, Alan, man, he said, so you telling me you've had casual sex with a lot of women without going on at least 2 or 3 dates with them or taking them out for drinks? He was like, if that's true, he was like, you must be a bad motherfucker. He said, you must be a bad motherfucker, because he said the average guy can't pull that off. That's what AMS said. He said the average guy is not going to be able to pull that off. He said the average guy, in order to score casual sex, is going to have to do one of 2 things, if not both. This is basically what he said. He said the average guy, if he want to score casual sex, he's either going to have to take a woman out on 2 or 3 dates and spend at least a little bit of money on them, like take them out to the movies a couple times, take them out to lunch or dinner a couple times, or he said at bare minimum, they're going to have to spend some time with them hanging out, like just hanging out with them, you know, maybe like go to the park and hang out with them, basically spend time with them non-sexually. He was like, they're going to have to do one of them 2, either spend money on them and or spend time with them non-sexually. He was like, but he said, the only time I see a guy getting a woman in bed without spending no money on them and without spending any significant amount of time with them non-sexually is if that guy is either amazingly good looking and or exceptionally charming and seductive. That was his 2 exceptions. He said the only time I can see a guy getting away with that is if he's either amazingly good looking or exceptionally charming and seductive. Well, I guess I met both of his exceptions, and this brings me back to Obsidian. This brings me back full circle to Obsidian. If you listen to Obsidian's comments in the intro, he basically, in so many words, said, I don't believe Alan Roger Currie has gotten the women he's gotten in bed simply because he has an exceptional mouthpiece. I think Alan Roger Currie doesn't realize he's in denial and he's delusional, but the realistic fact of the matter is Alan has gotten most of the women he's gotten in bed because of his looks. He basically tried to argue in so many words that Alan Roger Currie, he will make you believe that he's gotten women in bed because of his smooth, seductive mouthpiece. But Obsidian was basically like, no, that's secondary. He said the main reason why Alan Roger Currie has gotten women in bed. Now, in his personal defense, he ain't the first one to say that. He ain't the only one to say that. I remember when I first got on YouTube, one of the first guys who said that to me was this guy named, I haven't seen him around in a while, but he goes by the name Tony Maceo. He used to be on the Mac City Limits podcast. Tony Maceo said that back in 2017. I remember he said that. He was probably the first person after I got on YouTube that said, he was on O'Shea's channel one time and he said that O'Shea was interviewing Tony Maceo. And Tony Maceo, I'm paraphrasing his words slightly, but he said, yeah, man, Alan Roger Currie be acting like he's gotten all these women in bed because he's just a smooth talking master seducer. He said, nah. He said, that nigga he's a light-skinned pretty boy. That's why he's gotten women in bed, because he's a light-skinned pretty boy. And he said in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, most black women love light-skinned pretty boys. And that's why he got a lot of women in bed, because he was a light-skinned pretty boy. Insert dog face here. Number one, I ain't light skinned. I ain't Klay Thompson or Steph Curry. If I'm light-skinned, Denzel Washington is light-skinned. Period. If I'm light-skinned, then Denzel Washington is light-skinned. If I'm light-skinned, Reg the bad guy is light-skinned. Because me and Reg the bad guy are almost the same complexion. And speaking of Reg the bad guy, he did a poll related to this. Related to what Obsidian said. He did a poll. I'll get to that in a second. But, nah. That ain't it. Now, let me make something clear. I never said that my looks were a non-factor. I've never ever said that, and I'll give you $1,000 if you can ever find a quote where I said my looks didn't contribute to my success with women at all. So I want to make that clear. I've never said that my looks did not contribute to my success at all. And I would say that for any man. That goes for any man. You ain't gonna never get no woman in bed for casual sex, with the exception of spending money on her, being a trick or a sugar daddy. You ain't gonna never get a woman in bed for casual sex without your looks playing a factor. So that's a given as far as I'm concerned. That's a given. Anytime you get a woman to engage in short-term, non-monogamous, casual sex with you, one or more episodes of short-term, non-monogamous, casual sex with you, and you didn't take her out, you didn't spend no money on her, you ain't spent no money on her at all, it's going to be in part because of your looks. It's going to be in part because of something about your face, something about your physique, your hair, the color of your eyes, something. Your looks. You remember I did a spirited debate with C Boogie about this. Looks are always going to play a factor when you're talking about casual sex. When you're talking about casual sex for free, not casual sex, but casual sex for free. Anytime so write that down if you need a reminder. Anytime you get a woman in bed, get a woman to agree to engage in one or more episodes of short-term, non-monogamous casual sex with you, and you ain't spent no money on her, you can best believe that no less than 20 to 25% of the reason you got that woman in bed was because of something to do with your looks. I said bare minimum, no less than 20 to 25% of the reason why you got that woman in bed was something to do with your looks. Again, either your face, something to do with your facial looks, your looks from the neck on down, or a combination of the two. So that's facts. So for me, there's no disagreement about, and this is when I had that debate with C Boogie where me and C Boogie agreed. Where me and C Boogie agreed was that looks are always going to be a contributing factor to your success with women. Always. Again, specifically casual sex. More so than relationship sex. Definitely casual sex. If you're talking about having casual sex with women without spending money on them, or as they call it, without tricking or whining and dining, then your looks are always going to play a factor. The question is, how big of a factor? Let me go to my man Reg the Bad Guy's poll. Reg the Bad Guy did a poll related to Obsidian's comments. Okay, my man Reg the Bad Guy, shout out to Reg the Bad Guy. I call him the king of YouTube opinion polls related to black male YouTube content creators. Yeah, when it comes to stuff related to black male YouTube content creators, Reg the Bad Guy is the king of opinion polls. But in his most recent opinion poll, he asked the question, he said, Obsidian said that dating coach ARC, myself, used to get women in bed because of his good looks only. Agree or disagree? And then he had 5 responses. Response number 1, I agree. ARC is a light-skinned, pretty boy that women used to love. Again, I call that the Tony Maceo argument. Tony Maceo was the first person who said that after I came on YouTube. He said the only reason ARC used to get a lot of pussy was because he was a light-skinned, pretty boy, and just about all black women in the 1970s, 1980s, and 1990s love light-skinned, pretty boys. Bullshit. Anyway, at the time I print screened this, that had 13% of the vote. Second response was, I agree. ARC's looks were more important than his Mole 1 mouthpiece. At the time I print screened this, that had 7% of the vote. Third response was, I disagree. ARC's looks have helped him, but he has an exceptional mouthpiece. And that has the largest percentage vote. At the time I print screened this, that has 52% of the vote. And I would say that's the most accurate response. Yeah, I would say that's the most accurate response. Is that my looks have helped me, no doubt, but I have an exceptional mouthpiece. Exceptional. One of the best the world has ever seen, quite frankly. Fourth response was, I disagree. This was the funniest one. ARC is not all that handsome, in my opinion. He's actually only average looking. That has 6% of the vote. You know who said that one time in a lighthearted way, speaking of Tony Maceo, was a brother goes by the name Big Mike with Mac City Limits. He said that one time in 2018 on one of his podcasts. He said, man, I always hear a lot of guys saying that ARC is this really, good-looking guy and this pretty boy. He said, man, I'm a somewhat disagree with that, man. He said, to me, ARC is like slightly above average. I would consider ARC slightly above average. He ain't like no Boris Kojo type looking brother, man. He ain't no Boris Kojo, Morris Chestnut looking type brother, man. He just a slightly above average looking brother. No, actually, this is the funniest response. Then the fifth and final response was, hey, Reg, will you please stop listening to Mamiya Obsidian Ali? Basically implying that, Obsidian be saying a bunch of crazy shit. Don't be listening to that fool. That was the fifth. That actually has the second highest percentage as of my print screen, which was, at the time of print screen, there was 390 votes tallied. And that had the second highest percentage with 22%. Yeah, but so anyway, here's the thing that Obsidian said about me. He said, I'm in denial that I'm a select guy and I'm delusional about the impact of my looks. Wrong on both accounts. Number one, as I started off this video saying, when it comes to being self-aware about myself, because he said I'm not self-aware, I'm exceptionally self-aware. I know I'm a handsome motherfucker. If you want to hear me say it. I know I'm a handsome motherfucker. Particularly when I was in my 20s. I still think I'm a handsome motherfucker. But definitely, if you're talking about my 20s and 30s, shit. Don't let my ego come out full force. Don't let my ego come out like that. I don't want to do that much ball rubbing. Shit. When I was in high school, man, I had girls, high school girls, used to regularly tell me, they used to come up to me, they used to walk right up to me and say, you are the finest high school man I've ever seen. Seriously, I'm not saying that just to ball rub, but that's the truth. When I was a senior in high school, I had dozens of women that used to come up to me and say, in respect to the city I grew up in, which was Gary, Indiana, that's the hometown of the Michael Jackson and Jackson 5, girls would come to me and they say, you are the finest nigga I've seen. Of all the guys of any high school in Gary, Indiana, I can't think of any guy that's finer than you. That's the type of head juicing I used to get. That's probably, if there was one year, man, that I used to get my head juiced up, specifically in regards to looks, it was my senior in high school. More than any other year I can think about, as far as just specifically respect to looks, was my senior in high school, dude. My friends who went to high school with me, they'll tell you, man, women used to go crazy over me, man. I mean, like, I used to get treated like I was a fucking like movie star or a hip hop R&B artist or something, man. It was ridiculous, man. Like, women would literally ask for my autograph like I was a celebrity. Like, girls would come to me at basketball games and they would say, "Isn't your name Alan Currie?" And I'd be like, "Yeah." They say, "Can I get your autograph?" And I'd basically be like, "For what?" Because I wasn't on TV, I wasn't in no movies. So I'd be like, "What you want my autograph for?" They would be like, "Just to let my girlfriends know that I talked to you. I want your autograph." So we're not doing any more ball rubbing about my senior year. That was the one year where I got dapped up probably the highest, specifically in respect to my looks. The negative, as I pointed out in a few previous videos, the negative side of my senior year, I had a lot of player haters, man. Like, I used to have dudes that I didn't even know, never had a conversation with, would want to start fights with me. Mainly it would be guys from other schools. It wouldn't be guys from my own school. But guys from other schools, when they would see me getting a lot of attention from the girls, they would come up to me and they'd be like, "Man, you ain't all that and shit. You ain't all that, you fucking pretty boy motherfucker and shit. You just one of them pretty boy niggas, man. Fuck you and shit. Man, I'll whoop your ass and shit, man. You ain't shit. You ain't all that and shit. I don't know why girls be going crazy over you, man. You ain't shit, man. Fuck you, man. Fuck you. You ain't shit." I used to get a lot of that, man. My senior year, oh, man. It was ridiculous, man. That's when I first got exposed to the concept of player hating. Because before my senior year, I never really gotten player hated on. But, oh, man, my senior year, dude, man, other dudes who were jealous and envious of me, oh, man, they used to player hate on me like it wasn't even, it was ridiculous how much I used to get player hated on. But anyway, my point was, Obsidian said, "I'm not aware of my look." I'm very aware of my looks, bro. I'm very aware of my looks. And even more so when I was younger. Starting with the age of like 17 up until late 30s, early 40s, shit. I was very aware of the impact of my looks. But as I mentioned in my spirited debate with C Boogie, looks only help you with reciprocators. Looks alone, I'm going to say this again. Looks alone never help you with wholesome pretenders and erotic hypocrites. They don't. Period. End of story. Looks alone will never help you get a wholesome pretender or an erotic hypocrite in bed. Never, ever. Reciprocators, yes. They most certainly will. Wholesome pretenders, erotic hypocrites, no, it will not. No, it will not. Looks by themselves will never help you get a wholesome pretender or an erotic hypocrite in bed. Why? I'm not going to get into long detail. You got to get my book, Who Said Again. I explain it in longer detail. But in real simplistic terms, it's because of their social programming, their cultural conditioning, and their prudish sensibilities. Social programming, cultural conditioning, and their prudish sensibilities. You ain't going to get, when it comes to casual sex, you ain't going to get no wholesome pretender or no erotic hypocrite in bed for casual sex simply based on the fact that you a fine motherfucker, that you a handsome motherfucker. You ain't going to never do that. I'll put $10,000 on that. I'll put $10,000 on that bet. Guarantee you won't. I guarantee you won't. That's where Mouthpiece comes into play. That's where Mouthpiece comes into play. When you want to seduce a woman who's a wholesome pretender or an erotic hypocrite, you have to have an above average mouthpiece. You got to have persuasive charm and verbal seduction skills. You have to. It's literally a mandatory requirement. Basically, when it comes to wholesome pretender or erotic hypocrite, There's only one of 2, possibly 3 ways you're going to get a woman in bed if she's a wholesome pretender or an erotic hypocrite. Now, again, a reciprocator, you don't get a reciprocator in bed. Like when my senior in high school, pretty much every woman I had casual sex with was a reciprocator. All I had to do was show up. I didn't have to spend no money on no women. I didn't have to use no persuasive, charming verbal game on women. I just had to show up and women would drop the panties. That's when you know that your looks is the number one thing that's helping you get a woman in bed. Is when all you got to do is show up. Once you go over a woman's place or once she come over your place, you just go in for the kiss. She doesn't stop you. You start taking off her clothes. She doesn't stop you, and she just gives you the pussy. No resistance whatsoever. That's when you can say my looks was the number one reason why I got that woman in bed. Is when, number one, all you got to do is show up. Either you show up to her place, she shows up to your place. And once you go in for the kiss, she doesn't stop you. She doesn't resist. Once you start making attempts to take off her clothes, she doesn't stop you. She doesn't resist. She lets you basically have your way with her. That's when you can say looks is the number one reason why I fucked this woman. Is my looks alone. But when you're dealing with wholesome pretenders and erotic hypocrites, here's what you got to have. If you don't want to spend money on them, you got to have a mouthpiece. You got to have a mouthpiece. You got to be a master at direct verbal game seduction. You got to be a master at direct verbal game seduction, which is my forte. That's my specialty. Second option, you can choose to be a skilled liar and manipulator. You could say, in a manner of speaking, having a great indirect verbal game mouthpiece. If you're a skilled liar and manipulator, that's what I would call having a very masterful indirect verbal game mouthpiece. That's the second option of getting a wholesome pretender erotic hypocrite in bed. Is to be, in other words, you would specifically give them the misleading impression that you want to be their next long-term boyfriend or future husband, and they buy into your disingenuous bait. And then once you fuck them 2 times, 5 times, 10 times, you just ghost them. Go ghost on them. And then the third option, particularly for the erotic hypocrite, would be you resort to tricking. An erotic hypocrite, not so much a wholesome pretender, but erotic hypocrites, they're very materialistic. They go for tricking. So that would be the third option, is to resort to tricking. Those are your 3 options. When you're dealing with a wholesome pretender and or an erotic hypocrite, direct verbal game mouthpiece, indirect verbal game mouthpiece, otherwise known as dishonesty and manipulation, and tricking. Tricking, again, won't work on a wholesome pretender, but it'll work on an erotic hypocrite. It'll work on an erotic hypocrite. So yeah, that's your options. One thing that kind of works like looks is popularity, fame, status. Popularity / fame / status. Like I heard Obsidian make this comment about Alan Roger Currie doesn't realize that part of the reason he got women in bed was because he was a member of Kappa Alpha Psi. Yo, Noops, Phi Nu Pi, Alpha Chapter Baby, Alpha Chapter Baby. He said he does, dude, I know the women that I get in bed because I was a Kappa. Again, without getting too detailed because I'm running out of time, popularity / fame / status works almost in the same way looks does. All you got to do is show up. All you got to do is show up. If you're a famous movie star, women going to drop their draws for you just because of the fact that you're a famous movie star. You ain't going to have to spend no money on them. You ain't going to have to use no persuasive charm. They just going to drop the draws, depending on who you are. Now, fame is not, I wrote an article on the Negro Manosphere. Fame does not automatically mean you're going to get a lot of pussy. I know from working in the entertainment industry. Just because you famous. Louis C.K. is famous. He didn't automatically get no pussy. And that's why he was the victim of the Me Too allegation. Aziz Ansari was famous. He didn't automatically get no pussy. And that's why he was the victim of Me Too allegation. So just because Tavis Smiley is wealthy and famous, look what happened to my frat brother. And I know him personally. So you can't say just because you famous that automatically means you're going to get easy pussy. That's a lie. That is a lie. Now, if you a Brad Pitt, Boris Kojo, George Clooney type looking motherfucker, then that's pretty valid. But if you just the fact that you famous, period, wealthy and famous, period, that don't mean shit. If that meant shit, we wouldn't have the Me Too movement.
Yes, sir.
Say it again.
Yes, sir.
Who's the king?
Alan, you're the king.
Say it again.
Alan, you're the king. You're dominating me.
Say it again.
Alan, you're dominating me right now. Mode 1.
Mode 1.
Daddy, can I go, please? You're the king.
Say it again.
Oh, king. Oh, you're the fucking king. Yes. Yes. Yes.
You're the king, Alan.
AKA the king of verbal seduction. You know, it's the tone of your voice, how seductive your intonations are, the vibrations that you could just reach out over the phone lines and stroke a woman's breast just by the sound of your voice, how you could make her pussy so wet just by the sound of your voice. That's actually very hot.
So you said my show was what?
I said your show is powerful.
Oh, say it again.
Your show is powerful.
But the king would fuck me really good.
Who's the king?
Alan Roger Currie.
Oh, yeah. Who's the king?
Alan Roger Currie. The king.
The king.
The king.
I have to agree with you on the communication piece, because I actually did take a session with Alan Roger Currie, and he gave me a line that I did not think was going to work, and it worked. And I was like, what the fuck?
Oh my God.
Man, he's the master. He's the master of the verbal seduction. He got that communication piece down pat.
It really worked. It just simply worked, and I just didn't think it was going to work at all.
Some guys have natural handles. Some guys have a better natural shot, but you can always improve your shot. And sex is damn sure something you can fucking learn. Look, dude, you want to learn how to talk better? I'm hiring Alan Roger Currie to get my dirty talk game on, because it's always been something I want to get better at.
Verbal seduction, man. I'm like, clearly, this guy's the Michael Jordan of seduction. Like, come on now.